Welcome back, folks. Today I am taking a look at the arrest of Nick Rekieta and family, or his wife at least. This happened on May 23rd in Spicer, Minnesota at 9:30 a.m. or somewhere thereabouts. I'm trying to take a look at the time, the specific event of law enforcement breaching the Rekieta household. There's a pretty long and wild story behind the arrest and what led up to it. I'm going to take a look at a Horary astrological chart for this particular event starting at 9:30 a.m. I understand that he was booked into jail at a little after 10 a.m. What I'm interested in is the point that law enforcement breached the Rekieta household and the old way of Nick Rekieta doing stuff ended, right? The old way of doing things ended for him. So that's what I'm going to get into. If you would like to take a look at the Horary astrological chart for this particular event, I'm going to have it on the screen right about now. You can pause the video and take a look, and then I'll go ahead and get into it. First of all, there are a number of notable things in this particular astrological chart. By the way, Horary astrological charts are the same pretty much as they are for an individual's astrological natal chart. It's the where the planets and stars were at the time someone was born. Well, these are the planets and stars and how they were aligned at the point that this event really kicked off for real. Something I noted right away is that there are two stelliums. One stellium is in the 11th house of society. That's friends, family members, social circles, fans. If I didn't say that, I may have already said that. I apologize. But also, he's got another stellium in the 10th house. That's about fame, influence, reputation, that kind of thing. Let's get into one particular point that's at the far end of this particular chart. He's got his moon in Sagittarius, or the point that the law enforcement breached the home. That particular event has moon in Sagittarius in the 5th house of creativity. The 5th house is about what lights our creative fires, what makes us feel like we're playing and having fun. It's about just doing things that make us feel joyful, that bring us happiness, for instance. Now, this is interesting. With the moon, that kind of feels like they were very much feeling their way through what felt fun. If it feels good, do it kind of thing. And think of that, if it feels good, do it, alongside the growth, expansion, constant kindling fires of Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is associated with the planet Jupiter. That's all about in being enormous, an enormous influence, growth, constant expansion. With the moon in Sagittarius, that's going to suggest that these emotions were constantly growing and that this particular lifestyle that Nick was in with his wife and his paramour, that was constantly growing. It was continuing to rapidly get out of control because one minute the drugs said, let's do this, and another minute they decide to do that, and then they pass out of exhaustion, and then they repeat the cycle over and over again. The 5th house is a little bit crazy when working with the moon in Sagittarius in this particular case. It elevates the feelings even more around this particular situation, as if Sagittarius wasn't enough of an influence. That's at the far end of one particular chart. There is so much to cover. Let's get into Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th house. And that's the 7th house of partnerships, by the way. You often associate the 7th house of partnerships with romantic relationships as well as business partnerships. Also, very, very close friendships. You're often going to see those influences in the 7th house. But in this particular case, Pluto in Aquarius is a dramatic, life-changing, permanent, earthquake-creating kind of transformation when it comes to romantic partnerships, okay? Nick is not going to be able to ever go back to how things were with his wife. Even if people don't see things on the surface right now, later on down the road, those earthquake created cracks are going to show up in their marriage, and it's going to end at some point or another. And it may not end well either. Pluto in Aquarius, we're all experiencing it right now. We're going to experience this particular transit until 2043. So for a damn long time, there's going to be a lot of really radical ends to eras. Not only is it a pretty massive transformation for Nick Rekieta and his wife, I believe her name is Kayla, I'm not sure about that, but it's also going to be a permanent end to how he and his children, how she and her children with Nick Rekieta, how they all interact with each other. And it's not just that, it extends past their immediate family and into their extended family too. Anyone that they did business with in the past, that's probably at an end, and there may be the real risk that Nick is never able to get new clients ever again, because he's always going to be associated with this. This is going to become this has the potential to have a heavy albatross, to become the albatross around his neck, so to speak, and around her neck too, because she's associated with this. It wasn't just cocaine with her, it was also child endangerment, I believe, with her charges. So really, really rough. This is an absolute end to a way of life. There might be, or there might not be, some risk to Nick's trust fund. And by the way, he is a trust fund baby. That does add another layer onto this. So I'm moving up onto the chart into Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And by the way, Neptune is in its home zodiac sign of Pisces in this particular case, and it's in the 9th house. This was when law enforcement breached the Rekieta home. It interrupted a really, really long-term, just kind of go with the flow, dreamy, if the drugs and the alcohol and the sex say do it, let's do it. A very carefree way of operating in the world. It's not a positive thing, but it had been that way for a long time. I'm going to say since before Nick Rekieta ever got onto the internet and started broadcasting his face and putting his opinion out there. Long before that, there was just this kind of careless, carefree, lighthearted way about operating around the world, and this marks a rapid, tremendous end to all of that. Not only did he have Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th house, we just discussed that. Saturn is here in Pisces, and it is also in here conjunct with Neptune, sitting next to Neptune in the 9th house. It was going to, the point that law enforcement breached the home is the point that things took a solid permanent end. But even if someone had kind of seen this coming from a distance, let's say someone heard through the grapevine that the Rekieta household was going to be breached this time Monday morning, for instance. Well, at that point, somebody could have pulled up a chart and said, there's Saturn and Pisces in the 9th house. This dreamy, carefree journey is going to come to a tremendous end, and then the drill sergeant kicks Pisces around in this particular case. And that's the dramatic shift I see coming in his 9th house of journeys. Life journeys. It's not just about higher education. It's also about our life path and what radically changes on our life path. Carefree up to a certain point until Saturn comes into the picture, and then it's ass-kicking time. Saturn is the drill sergeant planet, the old man who, I should say, the elder who says you're not going to leave this place until what you're doing is perfect in the eyes of Saturn. It's a rough planet to have, and it's the brick wall. Nick Rekieta was bound to run into a brick wall from the point that somebody in his church reported him for odd behavior, and for the children coming to their Sunday school teachers and saying, we're hungry, we're dirty, we don't have clean clothes. That's the point that somebody made the call to law enforcement, okay? And good for fucking them. I'm glad somebody took a stand here, because the kids don't deserve this. I'm doing a comprehensive chart reading because it's this important. Let's talk about the true node in Aries in the 10th house. The true node is about the true purpose of this particular event. With the natal chart, it's about the true purpose of a person. But with the true node being with Aries in the 10th house, this is meant to be an ass-kicking moment for Nick Rekieta. This is meant to say you had everything you could ever have possibly wanted, and now you've jeopardized it all. You are worse than a victim of your own success. You are your own worst enemy consistently. This is weak character. This is a weak personality. This is someone who doesn't have a real, true purpose in life. The true purpose in life was hedonism. That's what you saw on camera. He wanted to have fun. If he had had another purpose, let's say justice for a particular group, for instance, that would have come through on the screen. He would have consistently covered topics about it. He would have consistently discussed cases to do with that particular drive for justice. And it's not there. The hedonism, I would say, with Neptune and Pisces in the 9th house, that was what he wanted to be on. That was what he wanted his life journey to be. Being a trust fund kid didn't cause that to happen. That's an attitude that he took. Okay? To a certain point, you can blame the house that someone was born into. But that's ultimately a choice that he made as he grew up. Back to the topic. True node in Aries in the 10th house. This is the point that this is discipline coming in. Aries is associated with the Emperor in the tarot card. This is the disciplinarian, the lawmaker, the one who puts constraints in place. And by the way, fire signs are pretty concerned with justice. That's Leo, that's Aries, that's Sagittarius. These folks are all concerned with humanitarian justice. And with this being the 10th house, this is justice being literally served. With law enforcement breaching, and literally, I mean in the karmic sense. Nick Rekieta and wife Kayla had been gathering this energy now for a long time. At the point that the police entered the home, that was divine justice and earthly justice being served at the exact same time. That was the true purpose of this particular event. And with it being in the 10th house of influence and fame, reputation, all that good stuff, it was meant to be on display for the world to see. This is the phrase, pride goeth before a fall, has something to do with this. Nick is a deeply prideful person. Like, he doesn't have anything going on in Leo, but there's some pride associated with all 3 fire signs, Aries included. So that's a cutting of pride. Having your knees cut off, so to speak, in the public sphere. It's humiliating. Guess what else appears in Aries? It's the home planet it's associated with is Mars. So Mars is in Aries in the 10th house in this particular case. And that's about, well, all your sex secrets being spilled out into public. Okay, Mars is all about war, drive, motive, sex drive. And right here, that's, Aries exposing all the problems that are in its home planet, in its placement in Mars in the 10th house, and on a very public stage, because the 10th house is about reputation. So aggressive exposure of anything sexual, hedonistic that went on behind the scenes, it's open to the public. Everybody gets to see it. It's embarrassing. And guess what else is embarrassing? Chiron is an Aries in the 10th house. This is like, if someone had their placement in Chiron, had their Chiron placement in Aries, that would have been a really difficult pain point with the person's connection to the public sphere. With this event, it's doubly humiliating because it is so humiliating to have all this information out in public. Kayla, Nick, and I think her name is April. I don't remember what Nick's paramour was, but they were all living together in a kind of a throuple situation, and this is just absolutely humiliating for all of this. They know what they were doing was wrong. They know that they were acting like absolute frat boys on the lake on the weekends, just absolute batshit insane. They knew that they were behaving this way. And I haven't even gotten into the relationships between all these planets either. I've not discussed squaring energies, opposing energies, trining, sextiling. I've discussed none of those transits. Wait until we get into that, okay? I'm just talking about planets, stars, and their placements in each of their zodiac signs. We're continuing on with Mercury in Taurus, also in the 10th house. People are going to be talking about this for a damn long time. It's going to become a topic of household conversation for a long time because this is a trial that's going to stretch on for possibly years, depending on the laws in Minnesota. I heard that Nick Rekieta was representing himself, so that could slow things down. There's a lot going on here, but this dramatically, it's going to be all kinds of evidence is going to be revealed, and that's going to be dramatic. There are going to be testimonies. That's going to be dramatic. It sounds like the paramour has turned and basically given law enforcement what they wanted in her testimony so far. There's people are going to be talking about this for a long time to come. It's going to be fun for people to talk about. When I think of Mercury, I think of lightheartedness, lightfootedness, news traveling fast. With Taurus, that's going to be consistently. So news is going to be flying fast across all kinds of Kiwi farms, since I know Nick Rekieta hates that. Twitter, YouTube, people are going to be talking about this consistently. And the more stuff gets entered into the news about the arrest, about the trials, all that kind of stuff, the more it's going to kick up dust around it, and the more people are going to hear about this, okay? It's going to be a lot. So I've covered one particular stellium. Let's get into Uranus in Taurus, okay? So that's about things dramatically changing and the changes being permanent. But it's also here in the 11th house. So this is permanent dramatic changes in social groups. People aren't going to want to hang out with them. There's going to be an ew feeling around the Rekietas. It's not just going to be like Nick and Kayla either. It's going to be around other members of the family too. The reputation's going to spread and people are just going to be, ew, you're not for polite society. Don't hang out with us. Go sit at another table kind of thing. It's embarrassing. Something you're going to hear a lot with this particular astrological chart is embarrassing, humiliating. And also, what appears with Taurus is Jupiter in Taurus. So that's going to be the rapid expansion of people really not wanting to be around them. Because we have stelliums and because they're conjunct and working with each other, the sun is also influencing this. That's the sun in Gemini. That's people talking like crazy about this. Their social circles, it's a point, it's like their former social circles love taking a shit on them. Now that they're out, we can say what we really think about them. It's these people, the Rekietas are not going to recover easily from this. And I guess I remember saying that with the Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th house. That's just going to be such a huge radical shift, an end to one era into the start of another awful one, that they're going to be outcasts in many ways. At least Nick and Kayla will be. It's possible that the family members who are by extension associated with them, maybe they come back into good graces, but maybe not. The sun has a huge influence with this particular stellium in the 11th house. So Jupiter and Taurus, that's going to be about pretty consistent growth in terms of their friend groups, outside. It's there'll be unification of friend groups. I knew that they were doing shit behind the scenes. Did you hear them when they said this, and that, right? Back in the day, we should have known that they were cokeheads or that kind of thing. The friend groups are going to expand without them. It's what happened to the Rekietas is going to unify people, going to create communities. It's kind of insane. The last planet in addition to Sun, Jupiter, and Uranus, you've got Venus in Gemini in the 11th house. And this is kind of a transit that I would associate with the thruple, quadruple. At one point, April's husband was also sexually involved. There was a lot going on sexually, and this is definitely something that I see going on here. It's not like, because it's in the 11th house of like social stuff, this wasn't serious really at all. Like, there might have been some serious stuff, but I feel like that kind of got swept under the rug with all this other shit going on here. Venus in Gemini, this is about people talking like crazy, like really, like if the friend groups, when they unify, they talk about the sex stuff more than the guns, more than the cocaine and all that stuff, more than the child endangerment, which is the real shit right here. They're going to talk about the sex stuff. And they're going to say, oh my God, Nick was such a freak back in college or something like that. I'm not surprised about this at all. It's disgusting, man, that kind of thing. It's going to become like the country club joke. There was a lot going on along this particular event, and I'm not even completely finished. I've just talked about some things. I've not talked about the ascendant, which is in Cancer. In this particular case, this was a family that got destroyed because the descendant sign is in Capricorn. So descendant is about what was going on behind the scenes. So building up, it was just rough for the family to exist, the kids especially. And then when this blew up, people have been focusing not largely on the cocaine or the sex or the guns or anything like that, but also on the kids and how, like, I think that they're like ages 16 to as young as 6. Like, this has permanently changed the way that this family interacts, and it's going to be most rough for the children. Of course, it's going to be humiliating forever for Nick and Kayla, but most especially for the children. The children are not going to be able to get away from this. There's the possibility that they might be able to get jobs like with the family name, but it's always going to become a point of contention. Like, there's the possibility that coworkers will be discussing, classmates will be discussing this behind the kid's back or in front of the kids, for instance. This is humiliating, at least more humiliating for the kids than it is for the adults. The 6-year-old won't understand until later on in life. That's the tragedy. That 6-year-old is so young that this is going to affect them well into their teens and their 20s. This is just, it's the end of an era, like you would expect to see with that Pluto in Aquarius. So I want to look at the aspects between each planet and its sign, or not each. I think the astrology part of this has gone on, and I want to look at some other answers to my particular questions. Something I noticed with one of the aspects is that Pluto squares off with Taurus, or I should say Mercury in Taurus in the 10th house. So Pluto in Aquarius, we said, was in the 7th house of partnerships. The 10th house has to do with influence and fame. So I feel like with Mercury in Taurus that Nick felt like he could keep this quiet away from his fame, his reputation. I feel like he could keep this a secret. I feel like he overestimated how intelligent, how secretive he could be, and he underestimated how powerful the controlled substances, the alcohol, could be in loosening his lips. What's the old saying? Loose lips sink ships, right? So because of that squaring relationship with Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th house, which is radical, tremendous, unexpected change, ends to eras and the starts of new ones that people didn't necessarily see coming, black swan events. This came out of nowhere, but it's natural consequences of stuff, right? So right away, he thought he could keep this secret, and now his partnership is permanently finished, right? He was playing with fire when it came to doing all this stuff behind the scenes, but then using substances that were going to basically make it easier for him to talk, or at least show people what was going on, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth millions, right? And he had hours of live streaming content that people could say, this is not a healthy looking individual. He looks destroyed. This is hubris. This is someone who thought he could do this, and it was foolish behavior. I don't think he would say that. I think that he's a deeply prideful person with that Aries and Mars in his 10th house. Like, I feel like he's an extrovert. I don't know what his sun sign is, but I get the feeling that he's kind of a Leo, or he has some Leo energy somewhere in his chart. Deeply, deeply prideful. From the bottom up, he might have some genuine narcissistic tendencies. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm not saying that I have the experience or the credentials to do that. But with that, with the amount of pride that I'm sensing, genuine, at the very least, phenomenally selfish tendencies within him. Puts himself absolutely first before his children, who had no option but to be here with these particular parents. Absolutely before his wife and any paramours that he might come across, before friends. Nick Rekieta comes first in his imagination before everyone else, before his parents. It doesn't matter who. He's better than God, and he won't say that to his audience, but he sure feels like he has better judgment. I wonder if he doesn't look at the Bible and say, I wouldn't do that, when it comes to looking at what God does. Anyway, we're talking about some more oppositional. So that was a squaring transit. That's a really difficult, tense relationship that someone needs to work on throughout their entire lives. That's a life journey thing that no matter how spiritually or emotionally mature we become, with him in particular, he's not going to understand fully because of his hubris. He's never going to understand why this didn't work. I was so smart. I was so secretive. I kept this from the public. Why did this blow up in my face the way it did? I did everything right. I did nothing wrong. If that sounds familiar, you know, or you don't. Okay, sorry. With another particular transit he has is the moon in Sagittarius in the 5th house of creativity. So that was that emotional, constantly growing towards more excess, more hedonism. And those all oppose the stellium in the 11th house. So remember that stellium included the sun, included Venus, Jupiter, and Uranus, okay? So that all opposes those particular energies. So eventually, for instance, Uranus, and Taurus, these are all those energies that have to do with friends mocking them. So with the childlike, playful aspect of the 5th house, people, there are going to be friend groups who understand very well what it's like to enjoy a whole lot of cocaine, enjoy a lot of sex with people that they're not married to, for instance. They're going to understand and appreciate hedonism, but they're going to mock the Rekieta's lack of privacy. They're going to say, what kind of idiot live streams their coke adventures? Seriously, what kind of idiot allows his paramour to suck him off under the desk while live streaming? Allegedly, okay? Allegedly for entertainment purposes only. They're going to be talking about this all the time. This was just going to inevitably end with that Venus in Gemini in the 11th house, that tendency towards polyamory. That was going to eventually blow up in their faces when it opposes the energy seen with the moon in Sagittarius. That Sagittarius was going to demand justice be served at some point or another. That's some fiery energy there. With the air energy and the earth energy, that kind of, interestingly enough, that balances out with the fire and the fire and the water energy in the 5th house. So There were always going to be overwhelming forces at play as long as they were mixing this much pleasure with this much of their social circle. The Rekietas were taking... So sorry. The Rekietas were always taking a real risk, a real emotional risk when it came to this. There was always going to be the pitfall that their behavior was going to destroy everything in their lives and in the other people's lives too. Like, it was always going to be the potential for real embarrassment. And I feel like they ignored the risks. Like, the hedonism just took over their heads. Okay, so Spirit is saying that's actually enough with this particular astrological chart. Once again, if you would like to look at it, here's the picture right here. Pause and look it over if you like. Take a screenshot and use it for your own studies. Otherwise, I'm going to move into, let me hang on just a second. Let me see what I've got. I want to know, what does Spirit want us to know about who Nick Rekieta really is as a person? I'm going to use my Lenormand cards and I'll be right back. So I am using my Lenormand cards in a portrait spread, which is 3x3, 9 cards in total. His central theme is garden, quite literally the public sphere. Everybody gets to look at what's going on inside that gazebo. No privacy whatsoever. It lands on the house of the tree, which talks to me about the public growing around this particular situation. So interest literally gets encouraged, kicked up, because I'm looking at this on a horizontal level, which is like the present reality of this particular situation. The present reality of Nick Rekieta is that he is a social media kind of individual. He was always kind of tooled for the social media sphere. He's tailored his image to this particular thing. This is a spread about him. I asked who he was, and there's the answer quite literally. Who is he? This is someone who is on social media in a very public way, and something I noticed is that he lands on the house of the clouds. This is someone who does not see clearly. He is his own enemy. He gets in his own way. He lacks intuition. He lacks deep thinking ability. He's had chances to practice it, and of course he's been encouraged to practice it, but when he thinks, he just doesn't think that deeply. He gives off the kind of airs of being a smart, intelligent person, but it's copycat stuff that he's heard from other people. He doesn't have many original thoughts to himself. Okay. So let's look at some context cards around who he is as a person. In the 4 corners of this particular spread, we have, or one of the 2 corners, we have, he's attracted towards dramatic, selfish women who are loyal. Between these 2 cards, anima and birds, you have dog. Someone who's obedient, who's willing to lick his hands, lick his dick. Wow, those are Spirit's words, by the way, okay? This is someone who is just extremely, leashed. This is someone who changes who they are just to please him. So this is the kind of woman that he is attracted to. Who is he as a person? He's attracted to feminine doormats. I don't mean to be unkind, but that's what's being said right here. These are flighty women in the sense that they tend towards gossip. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? Flaky. There we go. I had another word coming up and I knew it wasn't the right one. Flaky. These are flaky people. The women these attracted to, they're messy, emotionally speaking. They're noisy too for him, I guess. Is something else I get. I also feel like he encourages this behavior just because of who he is. He's attracted to women like this. Like, in many ways, he gets the women he deserves. If that sounds unkind, it is, but the universe says that this is a deserved unkindness. Okay? On the bottom two corners, we have Mountain and Rider. Difficult news. Right away, difficult news. I'm seeing here in the future, when you look at the last vertical row to the far right, you've got birds, you've got animus, and you've got Rider. The last vertical row talks about the future, and around Nick Rekieta, it's just going to be constant drama, a steady flow, a steady stream of drama. There is body cam footage, I believe, that's already been released or is available to be released. There will be more evidence that comes through. The trial may drag on for a number of years or not. I don't know how swift justice will be in Minnesota. There's going to be all kinds of news for people to just consume with joy. So Rider lands on the House of the Bouquet, which is about the social atmosphere eating this shit up. And remember, we said earlier, the more evidence comes out, the further the trial goes along, the more people are going to be talking about it. Hey, do you remember that Nick Rekieta guy who covered the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial? Well, guess what happened? There's going to be a lot of that going around as long as this trial goes on. Nick has fucked himself over. Kayla has fucked her royally. They are royally fucked themselves over. They are their own worst enemies. This lands on the house of the ship, which tells me about a long-term journey that's just, like he was always headed for this. In many ways, it seems like he was predestined towards becoming or at least there was some potential for him to be famous to a certain degree anyway. With that bouquet and that garden, together with him and the animus, that tells me that he was always bound for some degree of fame. Now, I haven't looked at his birth chart. There was just a lot of stuff going on in that 10th house. There was a stellium, in fact, going on in that 10th house. There's a lot of activity there. I would just kind of expect to see that with this particular character. He's always going to attract drama. Pride goeth before a fall, once again. I noticed that the dog, which sits between woman, anima, and birds, that lands on the House of Clover. This is someone, when they are obedient to men, they don't think deeply about it at all. Again, Nick attracts people who don't think very deeply about the stuff that they do. And to be honest, if he had thought deeply enough about the stuff that he did before becoming an alcoholic, before becoming a cokehead, then there's the real possibility, the potential that he could have avoided all of that. But that's in the past. He's made his choices. He is where he is now. That's it. There is no going back on this. It doesn't matter what potential there was. He didn't choose it. He was always, it feels like, on a hedonistic path because of that Neptune and Pisces in the 9th house. Carefree, careless. We don't have to take care of ourselves or of anything we do. We just need to have the social accolades, and that'll be enough. I've got the hot wife. I've got the cute kids. I've got the house. I got the money. I've got the reputation. What more do I need? No, I'm going to live the life that I want to. I wonder if he isn't easily influenced. Okay, he's easily influenced by wealth, by friends who claim that they're friends but are just connections because of wealth. Okay, easily led by the nose. I'm getting a picture of a bull with a gold ring in its nose. So, let's talk about some diagonals that I've got going on. I've got anima, garden, and Rider pointing towards the future. These are future influences that we might see come into play. There's some specific stuff that's going to come about in a very public way, some news specifically that's going to be extremely public about this particular woman. And that could be April, or that could be Kayla, or that could be another woman in Nick's life. But there's going to be some publicly humiliating stuff that the internet is just going to eat up once it comes out. Okay, that's coming up in the future. Some of the past influence, we've got bird, garden, and mountain. this was always going, like, people had been talking about what was going on, possibly going on behind the scenes with Rekieta for a while. And especially in the days and weeks leading up to the actual point that Nick and his wife were arrested, people were saying, stop. We're seeing what you're doing on your live streams. It's time to stop. People were talking about it. They noticed the difficulties, and nobody in the Rekieta household did anything about it. So I'm looking at the past vertical column. I've got anima, I've got bouquet, and I've got mountain. And so this is a woman who is very social, but is also going through a lot of difficulties in the home that she lies about. Mountain lands on the house of the snake. This is someone who believes lies, also who tells lies, who sends around rumors, who affects an image of everything's just fine, we're the perfect family, you've got nothing to worry about. This is someone who is hell-bent on presenting a particular image to the world and didn't do it completely well. With the mountain, that's someone, at least a few people saying, I see what you're saying, but what I actually see on your kids, on your husband, and on you is that things are not well. You can say with your mouth all day, you can lie all day about what's going well and what isn't, but we can see the truth. There were all kinds of people who behaved that way. I kind of get the feeling that this was in church, right? Like Caleb was kind of responsible for saying everything's okay, we're great, happy to praise the Lord and all that stupid shit, right? Please excuse me. I'm not saying that praising the Christian God is stupid shit by any means. What I'm saying is her coming into the church with that kind of hypocrisy is embarrassing. And part of this, people noticed. So I want to talk about the middle row. The middle column, that's dog, that's garden, and that's scythe. So loyalty, the public's loyalty has been shot, basically. So with the garden being in the center, that's about the public. Something with the public has ended, and it's the public's obedience, loyalty, regard, respect, thinking of Nick Rekieta as someone to be admired, to be looked up to, for instance, to be relied on for opinions, hot takes, that kind of thing. This is the end of the public seeing Nick as anything other than a huge fuck up who had everything a person could possibly want, except for a purpose in life, spiritual fulfillment, emotional maturity, mastery over one's mind. There's all kinds of things that Nick doesn't have that I don't know that he'll ever see that he needs, because he thinks that he's got it together already. He doesn't need any validation from any guides or any things like that. I think that he's a religious person just for the image of it, just like the wife is there, the kid is there, the kids are there, the house, all of that is for image. At the end of the day, his religion is a shell to conceal what's actually going on underneath. Okay? The bottom row is what's going on subconsciously. That is mountain, that is scythe, and that is rider. So these are severe difficulties. Things are more severe underneath the behind the scenes than people know right now, at the very, very least. There's going to be more that comes out during trial when people are presenting evidence that's going to come up with how slaughter. There's for some reason the word slaughter is coming up when Nick Rekieta and trial and evidence comes forward. Maybe we'll figure out what that means later on, but that specifically, slaughterhouse. Okay. I don't know what's up with that, but there might not be anything that comes of that, okay? We'll just to watch and see what develops. This is going to be horrible for the Rekieta family, not just Nick and Kayla, but for everybody around them. It's going to be gossip fodder for a whole lot of friends and family members that aren't as close. But this is going to be hell on earth. It's going to just be a constant cycle of new news coming in. With Mountain, Scythe, and also together with Animus and Birds, I wonder if Nick isn't going to somehow dig even deeper into this, dig his heels in, and make things even worse than if he had just kept his mouth shut and not live streamed. I don't know that he's live streamed lately. I don't think that he does. But it's not only is there stuff coming out of trial, there's going to be stuff that he talks about in videos and live streams that are going to make things even worse and are going to increase the dramaticness of everything. It's going to be a tremendous shit show. Exposing on an international stage, because it's not just Americans who've heard of this guy. It's going to be embarrassing the family, because the Rekieta name has been spoiled internationally because of him and his behavior. And Spirit's saying, raise your kids better. Don't raise a Nick. So, I've got one more question, and I believe it has to do with what Spirit would like us to learn. Yes. What does Spirit want us to learn from Nick Rekieta's mistakes? I'm going to shuffle my cards and I'll be right back. So I am using the Thoth Tarot to answer this particular question today. My first card that I've pulled is the Queen of Cups. This is water on water energy, which talks about us looking into the mirror that the universe provides for us. It's an internal mirror of self-reflection, of meditation, of using our intuition to ask ourselves, are we really the best people that we possibly can be? Do we have a purpose in life that the universe is pleased to see us have? The mirror can be harsh sometimes. Water can be harsh sometimes. It's not always soft, and sometimes it carves earth because it's so powerful. Think about how the Grand Canyon was carved, for instance. Think about how all kinds of rock is carved over thousands of years. It's with water, and with some air too, but it's with water that it carves earth. If we can reflect on who we are as individuals, ask ourselves if we are working towards our best and highest selves, we are using the great power of the Queen of Cups to come into a place where we can say yes or no, and I'm going to continue to work on myself, even if the answer is yes. There's the real risk that we could become like Kayla in the sense that our boundaries stop where the other person's stop, right? We don't have boundaries of our own. They run over into other people's yards, so to speak, okay? So watch out for that as well. Make sure that you are your own person when it comes to romantic relationships, and that you don't become a chameleon or a people pleaser to the point that you compromise who you are as a person. There's nothing wrong with enjoying pleasing people. There are a lot of great wedding planners who are great at pleasing people, for instance, okay? But don't sacrifice your individuality, your personhood, your purpose for life by becoming so soft, so adaptable that you lack a brain of your own, okay? Water on water does not think very well because it's not sword energy. It doesn't take action very easily. It can be quite stagnant when it's not in an ocean, for instance, when it's not having its own momentum. I want to move into the Magus. Okay, this is the Magician. We need to use the tools that the universe has provided to us in order to become our best and our highest selves. We need to become the masters of the tools that the universe has provided to us, whether that's our material comfort, that's our minds, our emotions, our hearts, if that's our way of doing things, our behavior, all of it needs to be brought into service of our highest and best selves, which are in service to the universe, okay? To source, to deities, to the divine. But we need to become powerful magicians through the use of our intuition, and through becoming the best versions of ourselves, looking into the mirror and honestly asking, am I doing something that's going to build me into a better, stronger, evolved, elevated person? And if the answer is anything besides yes, emphatically yes, then something needs to change. The moon. Go through the hard labor that is connected to shadow work. Shadow work is difficult because it involves coming into the energy of the Queen of Cups, looking honestly into that mirror and saying, yes, I am working towards becoming an elevated, evolved person, or no. That takes some real honesty. That takes hard work, and that takes seeing the shadow for what it is, as something that is to be balanced out and not allowed to conquer us. Nick allowed the shadow to conquer him, and I doubt that he's the kind of person who will ever think deeply enough to do his own shadow work, even if he didn't want to cross over to another faith, even if he wanted to stay a Christian. There's a lot that he could do to say, this is the thorn in my side, my besetting sin, for instance. There's a lot of work that he could do inside the Christian faith that would be in alignment with shadow work, or doing Kundalini, for instance. Kundalini yoga, breathing, doing Kundalini work. There's something that he could do, but I doubt that he's going to do it because he doesn't see himself as someone who's flawed and in need of assistance. Remember that he's representing himself in these trials so far, okay? Last and not least, we have the Prince of Discs. This is air, or this is earth energy primarily, but this is also air. So the Prince of Discs, the Prince of Discs, I did it again. The Prince of Discs is one that has air moving through him, but is also grounded in the nature of earth. So that's going to be Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus energy. And as you can see, Taurus in the form of the bull appears here. So this would be a knight in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, and this is someone who gradually explores the territory that's assigned to this particular prince. And so this is about gradually exploring what we can do to manifest stability, financial stability for ourselves, and not wasting it the way that Nick did. He's a trust fund baby. He has all the financial resources he could possibly imagine, and yet he wasted it. He's a worse steward of his finances than a lot of people who are working poverty wage jobs. There's something to be said for that. Think about how you will spend your money. And be intelligent about it too. Be interested in finances, in investing, in credit stuff. Find ways to build your wealth and do it gradually over time. Remember that Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither were people's wealths, including the wealth that they pass on to future generations, for instance. I feel like Nick has possibly blown a lot of money that was intended for his children eventually and for his grandchildren. Like, there's stuff that he could have been laying aside for them. He should know how good it is to be a trust fund baby and would want to pass that on to his children, I would think, if he cared about them. I don't feel like he does. I feel like he's one that is, if anything, reverse energy. He just wastes time, wastes energy, and does nothing to expand his material reality, does nothing to make it more stable, more consistent. So, folks, that is the astrology of this particular event. That is a look into who he is as a person, and as well as the lessons that the universe wants to provide to us through Nick Rekieta's mistakes. That thunderstorm is starting over again. The tower is falling for Nick Rekieta, and things will never be the same again. If you've gotten to this point, thank you so much for watching. I will see you later. Take care.